January 21st, 2015 meeting of the San Mateo County Harbor District Board is called to order. Roll call.
Commissioner David? Here. Commissioner Bernardo? Commissioner Caravano?
Here.
Commissioner Matoush?
Here.
President Brennan?
Here. So the first thing we have is public comment. I'll call on people who have submitted speaker slips for items not on the agenda. The speaker limit time is 3 minutes. If you'd like to speak on an item before the board, please fill out a speaker slip for that item. And we have one slip tonight from Bud Ratz.
Basically, I have 4 general items I'd like to mention. I've been away on a 4-week trip, but I followed the developments of the Harbor Commission via the news. I was delighted to see that you had a January the 7th meeting and that improvements in governance have been made by the appointment of committees. But when I returned on Sunday and I went online and pulled the agenda down and so on, I wanted to find the details of what committees had been appointed and what areas. And lo and behold, there was no minutes from the meeting. I don't understand that. Given the abbreviated form of the minutes that the Harbor District has been issuing, the minutes for December 3rd and the January 7th special meeting are missing. We're not with the agenda. I just don't understand. It should be such a routine, ongoing, operating item and an important tool to communicate with the public what is happening at the board meetings, that the minutes are not done in a proper and timely way. I don't know who in the administrative staff is responsible for that and whose job description it is in, and whether it's part of their performance evaluation. I think this really should be reviewed. One of the reasons I was very interested in the committees is that the board commission's interaction with the Plan Princeton being done by San Mateo County. Long-term, what happens in Princeton, I think, is very important to the financial long-term stability of the Harbor District. Land use in Princeton is vital to the harbor and what happens there. And the board commission should have a mechanism for tracking what is happening in terms of land exchanges, sale. There was some waterfront property in Princeton that was just recently up for sale, and I think it is sold. Zoning is a critical issue. Zoning should encourage activities which support the harbor. There should not be miscellaneous manufacturing and other activities there. The land in Princeton is grossly underutilized. And if we had a higher utilization rate encouraged by zoning, that would benefit the Harbor District. Thirdly, if there was any way to revisit the sale of the property to the Fire District, I think the commission should be actively investigating and see what possibilities there are. Thirdly, I think this format is much more friendly, open, and transparent and accommodating than the dais in the council chambers.
Thank you. So we have new business. Item 1, District Administration Office at Oyster Point Boulevard. And I believe that the general manager has a staff report.
Yes, there's a staff report. In general, what we have here is the district has a lease for the building they are in now, for the space they're in at 400 Oyster Point Boulevard. We must provide notice no later than February 1st of this year if we decide to vacate the building by the end of May of this year. Otherwise, we end up renting it for the balance of the year. So what this report is basically we have found many, identified many properties available on the coast side at least. And so the recommendation is basically aimed at saying that we would authorize to provide notice by February 1 of this year, so that we could then begin to do the search for a space on the coast side.
So is there a motion to authorize the acting general manager to provide notice by February 1st, 2015?
So moved.
Okay, so it's been moved, let's, get a second and then we can have a discussion. Does anybody want a second?
Second.
Well, you made the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so, you had a question?
Yeah, at the last meeting, I suggested to look into the possibility to also continue month by month. Was that discussed? If,
Yes, I believe it was 200% per month additional in rent if we went month by month past the deadline.
okay, but it is an option.
It is an option.
I have a comment on this. The staff report identifies the alternative, other building sites that could be possible. But it was not supplied with any type of financial information regarding, would either be a saving, or would be an increase in rental, and renting office space. And without that information, I fail to see how we can, have, any type of responsibility to try to make an informed decision. Right now, we're seeing what the current rate is for the current office space, but we are lacking the information in terms of what it would cost for the new accommodations for the Harbor District, and also for the space, the amount of space that is required for the staff. And also, I feel like we need to get some sort of indication from staff in terms of whether this move is something that can be done at this time without much disruption to the staff. And it's one thing for the commission to decide, to make an uninformed decision, not knowing financially what it would impact the district, but also we're not providing provide any information from staff in terms of what kind of disruption would create for staff.
Well, if I could respond to that as a member of the ad hoc committee for the administrative office committee. We did have a meeting. We discussed this preliminarily at our special meeting. We've met with the realtor who's here tonight. We've looked at a number of different properties. We've looked at a number of different options, and we're studying what the move will be, what it'll entail. The general manager is going to bring us move-in costs, and we have several properties in mind that we're looking at. It would be an overall cost savings to the harbor.
Scott, did you want to follow up on any of the?
I think the one piece on the moving, I'm still waiting on estimates right now for getting things to a different location, but I should have that before the next meeting. We've had 3 firms come out and look, they just haven't sent their information to us yet. As far as the cost comparison, the prices were at the same or less is what we found with the different properties available in the move committee and their discussions as far as what's out there at its list price. In the sense of like, if they advertise $2 a square foot, we haven't negotiated with them yet. So basically, at the list price, we were the same or less.
And in addition, I just wanted to comment that at least 2 of the properties did not exceed what we currently pay, but also offered space for public meetings. So that was a significant advantage as well. Any other questions?
Well, I'd like to hear from conference, either tonight or at a future time, about what kind of disruptions this would cause for staff, disease. And also knowing that this is a question of urgency of this item.
Any other comments or questions?
How much is the cost saving if we have basically the conference room available and don't have to rent space every month for the meetings? Approximately $40?
Paper track?
Yeah, we pay $100 a month for Seacrest, and we don't pay anything currently for community meetings.
But there's also staff time involved with running around and setting up.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions or anything? No. Okay, hearing none. Roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David,
Yes.
Commissioner Matoush,
Yes.
Commissioner Caravano,
No.
President Brennan.
Aye. Okay, and next. Session. We have closed session. The Board of Harbor Commissioners of the San Mateo County Harbor District will now convene in closed session to consider two items. First, the board will meet to confer with its real property negotiators under Government Code Section 549568. The property in question is located at 504 Avenue Alhambra, El Granada, California. The district's negotiators are Scott Grindy and Randy Kinghorn. The persons with whom the district's negotiators may negotiate are Working Dirt LLC and their representative, Billy Daniels. Second, the board will meet in closed session under the anticipated litigation exception in Government Code Section 54956.9D2 to confer with legal counsel concerning one case that presents significant exposure to litigation. And do I take public comment from closed session?
If there is public comment.
There is no public comment, so,
Yes is the answer to your question.
okay. So, can we convene or do we have to? Okay, we
Yeah.
will now,
Is there any estimate that we can give the public maybe to let them know whether they can go through it with the half an hour to present content?
It's up to you.
Yeah, they're clinging ice.
So Commissioner Brennan, before you continue on, I just want to announce that in the closed session, the board took no action reportable under the matter.
thank you. So next we have the consent calendar. And this is my first time doing consent calendar, so,
Let's continue business. Continue business. Reorganization of Harbor Commission, selection of treasurer. Do we have a memo from council?
There is a memo, it can be summarized in two sentences, which is, number one, you must designate a treasurer, and number two, you can then designate anyone you would like. Happy to answer any more questions, but that's basically what happens.
And you may appoint a deputy treasurer.
And the treasurer may appoint a deputy treasurer, and the district's historical practices with regards to its bookkeeping and accounting functions is consistent with the statute, and I don't know that there's going to be a change in practical effect. I'll defer to staff, but I think business will continue as usual regardless of who's designated.
Okay, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
In your memorandum, you're stating, section 6071 of the, California Harbors Navigation Code,
Yes.
where it says, the treasurer serves at the pleasure of the board but does not need to be a board member. And then at our last meeting, I think it was Leonard Warren who brought up section 7071 of the same code, where I think it stated the director shall not be treasurer. How does that conflict with
So the Harbors and Navigations Code contains a number of chapters. These are what's referred to as the enabling legislation of special districts. They are creatures of statute. The Harbor District is enabled pursuant to Harbor Navigation Code 6,000 and et cetera, going up to, I believe, 6,111. There are other chapters in the Harbor Navigation Code that apply to different types of districts, port districts, river districts, small harbor districts. There's a great, there's an assortment of different types of special districts, and Leonard Warren was referring to a statute that governs the activities of a type of district completely different from the district not applicable to the harbor district.
Thank you.
It's not unreasonable to look to those statutes as to what policy might guide you, but there is no legal, that is not a legal requirement for the district.
To follow up on that, I think that other harbor districts have looked to that for guidance. It's not a requirement, but for guidance. And I say that because in doing some research, it appears that this district is the only harbor district that has a board member, or has had a board member recently as the treasurer. And so it appears that the other harbor districts have decided not to do that. So I just wanted to point that out. Are there any other questions or discussion? No? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion, or make a nomination, rather?
I'll nominate you to Commissioner Maravano as treasurer.
Is there a second?
Is this a position you like?
Well, I've been asked to serve, so I'm going to serve.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, is there another nomination?
I'd like to nominate Scott Grundy as treasurer.
I'll second. Any discussion?
But I do have questions about that. Do we have a job description for the treasurer that's asking, acting harbor master, acting general manager, scheduling to perform?
I don't think there's a job description for the treasurer, is there? Or is there?
I think if we're asking someone to fulfill a position, we better know what we're asking them to do.
Is there a description, Ms. Harris?
It's not an HR position, so the treasurer's never been an HR position. As long as I've been here and longer, it's always been certified member of the board, so there's not been a job description created.
Here's a question for, the general manager. So if you were to be the treasurer, would you, have someone perform duties as a deputy, or how would you deal with it? Because we know you're very busy.
I think the assigning of a deputy would probably occur. I think the only thing I would have as a concern is the workload in regards to the finance committee with the treasurer, just making sure that it's not an additional major burden to either the deputy or the general manager, acting general manager's position, so that we can get things done properly for the community, but yet still get our other work done. That'd be my main concern.
Does that concern exist regardless of whether or not the general manager was the treasurer? I mean, are you still concerned about the responsibilities of the finance committee?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's either,
Yeah.
either.
Yeah, it's a concern. I just see it as being even more potential reporting duties.
Mhm. Any other?
As a follow-up to that, I would like to inquire as to the amount of hours that would be required of the treasurer to perform his or her duties.
Well, you've been the treasurer, so maybe you can tell us.
I think if I'm no longer the treasurer, I think that this is something that, should come out from the person that is being asked to serve as treasurer.
But you're the one that served as treasurer on the board, so you're the only one that knows how many hours.
I have a sense that, Mr. Grindy accepts his position, or is appointed to this position, that without having a definition of a job, or having a job description for a treasurer, he is not going to know how much work, what the workload's gonna be. So that's a concern that I have. That's why I'm asking that be a little more definitive.
Well, maybe you can tell him what the job is since you've done it. Why don't you give him a job description?
Each board member that has been treasurer has done different practices or different activities. So I would be remiss to say that I'm speaking for all past treasurers on this commission. And I also, knowing, Mr. Green, maybe you could answer, how many hours are you putting into the district a week?
80 to 90 right now.
80 to 90.
Yeah.
And we're asking him to be a treasurer that maybe takes 6-7 hours if you're gonna be working with the finance committee. That's a lot of hours. So I think we have to be very cognizant of the workload that we're asking staff to do. When you have a person that says, they're working 80 to 90 hours a week, and we're asking them to take on an additional role without any increase in compensation, I think the commission has to take a second look at what we're asking staff to do.
Are there any other comments or questions? And Scott, is there anything you wanna say in addition to what you've already said?
Not really into addition, no.
Okay. And a question for Stephen Miller. So you said anyone could be the treasurer. Does that mean a member of the public could be the treasurer? I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I said anyone, there is little guidance in the law here. I think I'd have to research that to give you an answer. It strikes me as a little, more than a little odd to just name someone from the public. But absent some more research, hard for me to look at this antiquated statute and tell you that it's legally prohibited.
Okay. So maybe what we should do is move forward with, depending on how the board votes, with having staff person act as treasurer. And if that presents a problem for the general manager, he could communicate that to the board, and then there could be a change made, and we could make someone else the treasurer.
Why wouldn't his deputy treasurer take it on?
So maybe that would happen. It just, I mean, to me, from what I understand, the deputy treasurer would be the person doing most of the work.
Sorry.
Well, the other thing I was gonna say is just that the person that I would imagine would become the deputy treasurer would probably be the finance director. And it's my understanding that the finance director is really already performing the duties of the treasurer now, or has been for many years. So this is all just sort of a title and name only. That's been my understanding. Like with the secretary, it's the deputy secretary who's really doing most of the work. Not to disparage your role, sorry. So the question is, would you be more comfortable with this as I'm just trying to find out what works best for the staff.
I think if the staff is appointed into the role of treasurer, I think it would be important for the staff to be able to come back in X amount of period of time and say, how's it going?
Okay.
You know, what's the time involvement, what's the, you know, we are not a large staff.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of, I hate to say a lot of staff, but there's roughly 28 staff around the district. The majority of them are in the deputy harbor master type roles. with very few in the administrative roles. And so, you know, my concern would be only that, you know, how I manage that time with the deputy treasurer as well, just so that we can accomplish making sure bills are paid and also the processes that might come out of the finance committee.
Okay, well, just one other idea that I want to explore. What if one of the acting harbor masters was treasurer? I'm just throwing that out there. We haven't talked about that.
Yeah, right.
That's a possibility also, and then there would be the deputy treasurer in that scenario also.
Alright, then that would probably involve a whole set of teaching someone a whole new job. And that might run into problems, right?
Well, I mean, I know one of the harbor masters has served on a public agency board before, so he's probably.
It's a union issue too.
Is it a union issue?
Yes.
Okay, all right, well, that's all I needed to know. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David, Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Caravano,
No.
President Brennan.
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan, or President Brennan, we are actually getting short on time, so we have a lot of people here on a couple items we may want to look at before we do that.
Okay,
Just a reminder.
okay. Are we close to 9:30 yet? Not
Yes,
quite yet.
both
And after.
Alright, alright,
Yeah, should we go ahead and vote on extending the meeting by an hour at this point?
You can anyone can at any time make a motion to do that and see what happens.
So can I get a motion to extend the meeting by 1 hour?
I move to extend the meeting till 10:30.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David, Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Caravano,
Aye.
President Brennan.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, let's see, where are we? So now we're moving to the consent calendar.
The minutes, just to inform the president of the board, are delayed and they will be brought back to the next meeting.
Okay, so that leaves us with one item on consent, which is approve acting general manager to be board member of the California Association of Harbor Masters and Port Captains.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David, Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Caravano,
Aye.
President Brennan.
Aye. New business continued. Item 8, amendment to fiscal year 14-15 budget for salary and benefits. And there's a memo from Ms. Harris.
Yes, we received a notification from Teamsters 856 that the Health and Welfare Fund contribution rates are going up for the year 2015. So that is going to provide us with a need to increase the budget for this rest of this fiscal year for $36,478.
Are there any questions or comments?
Do we need a motion?
Yeah.
Motion to approve this? Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David, Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Caravano,
Aye.
President Brennan.
Aye. Item 9, amendment to fiscal year 14-15 budget for recruitment expense. And there's a memo from the finance director. Oh, there's no memo? Okay. A report?
Well, the only report would be is that last week's meeting, you approved a contract in the amount of $37,900, and that wasn't in the budget, so we have to do a budget adjustment to amend the 2014-15 budget to include that amount.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I move to adopt resolution 515, to amend fiscal year 14-15 budget.
Second.
Roll call?
No, we have questions.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Where's $37,900? Where is this coming from?
It was in the last meeting, I guess we should have attached the contract. We would have contracted with BI Consulting regarding, general
Right, but
manager.
where's this money, is it being transferred or from another,
It's being included in the budget,
from?
right, from, where are we at?
I can understand the amount, what the money's gonna be used for, but where is this money, where in the budget is this money coming from?
We're making it part of the budget. We're increasing the budget that we did in July, we're increasing it to include this amount. So, it comes from the same place all year, the money that we get during the year.
Yeah, but something has to be decreased.
If you wanna keep, if you were telling us that you wanted to keep the budget numbers exactly the same, you are correct, we would have to decrease somewhere else. But we've not usually done that, usually what we've done is just increase the budget.
And I'd just like to make a suggestion, maybe for going forward, since the finance director doesn't attend the meetings, the regular meetings, these are questions that, board members might want to email to the finance director in advance of the meeting, so that she can clarify before we get here, and then we could add that information. Just a suggestion.
So I guess when you're looking at the budget summary and you show there's a total increase or decrease including capital, then this amount would go up. Of what we, because we have more in the budget. So this amount.
This be under consultants?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, or? Okay. Can I get a motion? Oh, we have a motion. In a second, give me a second. All right, roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner Davis. Aye. Commissioner Mathush.
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano.
Aye.
President Brennan.
Aye. Item 10, Coastal Commission permit electrical project for relocation of refrigerated containers on Johnson Pier. Project change of scope, memo, Scott Grundy.
Yeah. In the parking lot near the maintenance shop at Keller Point Harbor, the original scope of work that was approved in the attached project that's further back in the packet was to put in 3 electrical disconnect power connections for 3 refrigerated bait containers from the pier. Due to conflicts and other activities with Coastal Commission, it is being recommended that we either authorize the acting general manager to change the scope of the project to move to electric car charging stations and leave the containers where they are, or to authorize the option 2, there's 3 options I should say here. Authorize the acting general manager to notify the California Coastal Commission that the project will no longer be requested and the permit will be stopped. And then the third one is to continue as is and wait for California Coastal Commission to finalize and approve the possible permit for future refrigeration containers. And it's at the board's discretion of which choice they would like to make, if they wish to do so at this time.
There's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley.
Well, those 3 bait containers that are out there on the end of the dock there, I've looked all over. I don't know where it's even in any of those leaseholders' lease that they can have those containers there. That's number 1. Number 2, I'd like to know where they're getting the power for those containers. I'd like to know that. And those containers create a lot of havoc out there in the dock. And when I heard that you guys were going to move them into the parking lot, I thought that was a real good idea, because for the simple reason they don't belong at the end of the dock. All the totes that have to be used to unload squid could be stacked right there. And if they wish to do so at this time.
There's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley.
Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a public comment on item 10, John Dooley. Well, there's a Instead, they're stacked all along the dock. You can't even move. So I'm a fisherman, and I rely on delivering to that dock, but it's all congested. And I just was wondering why, what reason do they have to being out there? If they were part of the lease, I could understand it, but they're not. It's not even mentioned. And this commission, you know, is blind to that. I mean, that's a freebie. I mean, I'm calling a spade a spade. I really believe that those containers belong down in the parking lot, and each person that has one there can have the opportunity to go down there and get the bait, take it out and give it to the boat. They can organize it better. Big trucks can go there. They don't have to block the dock. You know, the bait, to fill a bait freezer, you got to bring a big semi in. Well, they could pull up right there. You know, and then I really wanted an electric boat, and I'm looking for a charging station, but that's on land. I wish the charging station was out on the pier, so then I could have electric boat, you know. But I don't see the benefit of electric charging for the cars. The parking lot is congested as it is. You can't even move down there on the weekend. And you're going to add the charging station and all the people going down there charging and blah. And then Barbara's Fish Trap, you're going to be invading on her spots over there. And she has a right to all those spots there. Did you talk to them about your suggestion of putting a charging thing down there? I mean, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion?
I have a question. In the staff report as Appendix A, there was something provided regarding the government code section 8.308 that prohibits any commissioner from voting on a project if he or she has received campaign contributions. So, do we have to discuss this in terms of who our project opponents are?
I believe you're looking at an appendix to the coastal commission.
Not, no, it doesn't relate to this.
Okay.
I mean, it's in their, application.
Yeah, it's in their application.
So you're reading from the coastal commission.
Yeah, that, what you find attached in this package is basically the coastal development permit with the modification of the electrical charging
That
station.
does not apply to the.
No, this is what
Okay,
goes to the
okay,
coastal
thanks for the
commission.
clarification.
Any other comments or questions?
Is there an option to not do the three at once and to see how well received a charging station is by the public? We want to start with 3 charging stations. It's very forward-thinking and progressive, and that's a good thing for the harbor. 3 spaces, I don't know how many people would use that routinely. Are people going to be more apt to charge their car there or at their house? Is there no difference in the current that's needed to charge a car versus people that run the boards out of the garage door?
Did you have more, Zach?
So who's going to enforce it if there's not a charged car in there?
The idea of having car charging stations, I think, is very innovative and very timely. And I would think if we were to establish those, and then leave, it doesn't leave the bait containers where they are.
That's what I was gonna say at this point, do we? One thing, if we can't keep going haphazard and not have an overall big plan for these things. We can put a car charging station in here and a badminton net and a beach. And we can do a lot of things, but we don't have a long-term general plan to work from.
Okay, any other comments before I make my comment? So I agree with what I'm hearing from the board. This car charging station thing kind of surprised me a little bit, just because I hadn't thought about it before, and, again, you know, I think it does, for me, I don't think it's a bad idea necessarily, but I feel like we are halfway through our strategic planning process. We just put the plan, for the most part, on hold temporarily. And we hope to get back to completing that planning process as soon as possible. But it makes sense to hold the plan for now, while the district's in a lot of transition. And I really feel like, this is one thing that the strategic plan ought to be looking at. And, yeah, go ahead.
What I was gonna say is that is, sorry, my voice is going over. Option number 2, basically, what I would propose in that is that, you know, right now there's conduit in the ground, and it goes from point A to point B of the parking lot, et cetera, but it hasn't been tied in final or with wire run. Option 2 allows us just to cap it off, cover it with dirt, know where it was laid, and at a later time, the strategic plan said we need electric car charging stations or electric something else, the pipe's already in the ground.
Okay.
And we just go back for a new permit at that time.
So, in thinking about that, it seems like that would also allow for, more input from the public and the business owners, the people who rely on parking spaces and that sort of thing, and maybe, you know, with a little more time, we could refine that plan and make it work. And, also, I'd never thought about having a charging station for boats too, and maybe, I don't know anything about that, but maybe that's something that we would wanna look at. I don't know how many people have.
Well, that's referred to in the bigger boats as cold ironing, but that takes a lot of power.
Okay, so maybe it doesn't make sense, but, you know, I think it's something that I wouldn't wanna rule it out, but I feel like right now, I'm not ready to, I haven't thought about it enough, and I feel like it needs to come through that strategic
Sure.
planning process.
Well, that's why option 2 is there, so that we could at least button it down and just come back to the coastal commission with a new permit request for whatever we would decide in the future to do.
Okay.
I think we were looking at other harbors, on the coast. Just about every bait holding facility is located off the docks, and it makes it heck of a lot easier for the loading of the packing of the bait facility and for the fishermen to come and retrieve their bait. So docks are left for loading and unloading of fish products only.
I was just concerned about the opposite, with the amount of people that go in and out of the bait freezers on the end of the pier. To have everybody running pickup trucks from way back in the corner and driving clear out to someplace on the pier, that would be additional congestion and create a lot of risk to the tourists and the people who come fishing on the boats and the people who buy seafood off the boats.
But that could be addressed in the strategic planning process too, that we just look for the, you know, with public input and input from the business owners, look for the best possible location.
So I never thought about this before, because I always see the bait being sold to, or being loaded into commercial fishing vessels that are next to the end of the pier. So it's a real direct connection, because it goes from the freezer right into the boat. So are you saying that some people drive down the pier to buy the bait, and then they put it on boats that are docked somewhere else? That's one way the bait freezers are used?
The ramps are used quite a bit to get smaller quantities of bait.
From the freezer to other boats?
Correct.
Oh,
And
interesting.
at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're trying to put frozen bait on a dolly going down to minus tide,
Uh-huh.
and you dock at the end of G dock, you would want to have a bait facility that's a little bit closer, a little more accessible.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I didn't know that, and I learned something. Do we have any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, can I get a motion?
I move to authorize the acting general manager to notify the California Coastal Commission that this project and permit will no longer be requested, and the work has been stopped with no further efforts to be performed to complete the project.
And we have a second.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Carvana, President Brennan.
Aye. Item 11, possible change in location to 3 Captain's Hoist at Pillar Point Harbor.
Yes, I would ask this item be removed from the agenda.
Any other? Oh, we need the memo.
Like, you want me to read through the memo itself, is what you're saying? Sorry.
Yeah, just like give us some kind of report on this.
Right. The intent of the, one that was just passed, which was the bait containers, this would be basically that, there's 2 options here. Authorize the acting general manager to work with the leasee, the captain, seafood to identify a location for a second hoist on Johnson Pier, consistent with probationary approval given for the existing location on March 22, 2014, with the understanding that any new location be brought back to the board for final approval. Option 2, allow 3 Captain's seafood hoist at Seafood's hoist at the existing location pending review and approval by the California Coastal Commission and all other required permitting authorities. And basically, this is just a memo to make a decision on which action we should take.
And I request that this item be removed from the agenda.
Is there any other comments or discussion? Oh, sorry. There are 2 public comments. We've got Mark Shear first.
Good evening. My name is Mark Shear. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here on behalf of 3 captains and to talk about this lease and the second hoist. First, let's do a little background. There's a lease that was entered into by the district with 3 captains. That lease was subject to public review, public comment, was passed by the commission. It is now a binding contract that binds the district and 3 captains. In that lease, it provides an opportunity to have a second hoist. That second hoist is located, and the only requirement is that the harbor master designate a position. There are no conditions in it. There is no ambiguity in what happened. So what happened here is consistent. 3 captains has done everything consistent with the terms of the lease. He requested a second hoist. The harbor master designated a location for the second hoist. That hoist was, he spent more than $50,000 putting this hoist together, and the approval of this hoist was subject to a waiver application that was before the Coastal Commission, and it was on the agenda for approval on the 13th of November, which is right in advance of the crab season. What happened was that there was some comment immediately prior to the meeting. It was removed from the agenda. He missed a season of use of the hoist, lost in excess of $100,000 as a result of that. So now here's the situation. We've got this permit with application that's pending. We have a lease that is unambiguous that gives him a right to the second hoist, that he's complied with all the requirements of it, and the hoist has been located. I see in this staff report that there's a description of some conditions predicated on the bait freezers moving and different things like that. Those items are not in the lease. That is, these items are not appropriate conditions to put on that. But I will say that there was an agreement that there would be a year period, a 1-year period where they have an opportunity to review this. Well, he hasn't had a chance to use the hoist yet, so he's got to have at least a year to use the hoist. You know, to have him put it up there and then not allow him to ever use it is impermissible, and I think is contrary to the rule of law. So my recommendation, I ask you, if you're going to do something with this item, I request that you choose option 2, allow this process to go forward, allow him to get his permit, and then allow him to use that hoist for a year so you can actually understand what if any ramifications result from that specific location, which I add is only a few yards down the dock from another tenant's hoist.
Thank you. There's one other public comment, and that's John Dooley.
Yeah, I fish for 3 captains, and I deliver crab and salmon to him in our boats. We have 2 boats that deliver to him, and the crab season is, Larry's at a disadvantage because the other 2 buyers are loading their crab pots, and it's hard for Larry to get his boats get their pots through. So I think that's what prompted Larry to go and ask for the second hoist out on the dock. And I know that there's a lot of opposition to that and everything like that, but I really believe that giving him a year to demonstrate what that hoist will do in that position is the right thing to do. And then we're only talking it'll go through a whole nother crab season next year at this time. We'll be talking about it. And if it's a flop, it'll be obvious, and everybody will say, just take it out of there. But I think you should have the opportunity to use the hoist 1 year after it's approved. Because then another thing, I don't know why he tells me that the Coastal Commission keeps putting it off, so I don't know. And I'd like to know where all the opposition has come, from when he's the one that's disadvantaged. He's the buyer that's disadvantaged out there. Those other buyers have a benefit. They're on this side of the dock. And when you back out there with all those trailers and everything, you can't even get out there, and you can't even get your pots on the boat. And the people that fish for him, which is about 20 boats, are at a disadvantage. They all can't be here tonight, but they all expressed the same thing. And they've all signed documents stating that they want the hoist to be there. But I believe that a 1-year trial period is a correct thing to do. But just see what happens there, because that's how you're going to find out what works and what doesn't work on that dock. And the whole, if you just look at the dock, and I've been there a lot of years, and if you just look at the dock, now is the time to expand the dock so that the 3 buyers, the squid, the crab people, the salmon people, all can live there. And there's I visualize just a dock expansion where everybody can live out there and no one person's disadvantaged. And then the commission's doing their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
The reason I wanted this pulled, because I think this is redundant, this agenda item is redundant. With all due respect to contracts and agreements, the parties that enter into contracts and agreements need to fulfill their timeline in order to see if in this case, there's a probationary period until April 1st of this year. And without that even having taken place, I don't see how the district can say to the person or the party that we're changing the location, or else we're changing the activity, we're changing the venue of where one is doing business. I think it's something that shows a lot of irresponsibility, and it is something that is probably removing from fulfilling the contract that it takes 2 parties to fulfill. In this case, 3 captains has an agreement with the Harbor District to utilize that hoist at that location. And as we have heard tonight and is written in the letter from March 28th, if after probationary period things don't work out, then we can revisit the impact of another location. But up until now, I see legally that there is no footing for the district to say that the hoist has created any nuisance or disruption and for anyone that does business or, works at the end of the pier. Those are my initial thoughts on this.
Any other, questions or comments or discussion?
Well, with reference to that March 28th memo, although I wasn't part of it, there is something to do with fulfilling permits. So we do have a permit issue to be complied with to start on the hoist. So I'm not sure what we can do without having fulfilled the local permit process.
Any other comments?
I think the permit process has been initiated. It's underway, and there's, I think the district would be remiss if they were to be involved in the permit process. I mean, it's between the captains and the permitting agency, whatever agencies that are required to operate the hoist. So the process has been started, and it's a matter of bringing forth the permits, so that way the parties can engage in a business.
Any other comments or questions or anything? Can I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that that we approve option number 2, to allow Free Captain Seafoods hoist at the existing location, pending review and approval by the California Coastal Commission and all other required permitting authorities.
Can I get a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Is there another motion? No other motion? We have two options in front of us.
If it was discussion, if we're open back up to discussion,
Yes.
the board wants to work with Free Captains. And I think that's about all I can say right now, because I don't wanna say, have them move the hoist right now. If they wanna come to us, it would speed up the process, perhaps.
So I see people looking at me. Absent a motion, just move on and take no action. There's no, this is not, there's no legal requirement that you act on this item, so.
Well, I have a couple questions. So since the, board has decided to not move the freezers, and my understanding was that moving the freezers was part of the plan when the original agreement was made. Scott, could you talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
we're going back to another item that was already discussed, and item number 11 had no motion, so it's time to move on.
Scott, that was a question for you. So,
Just so, Scott wasn't here when that agreement was made. He didn't start until April of 2012, the day the leases were signed, so he wouldn't have known.
Scott wrote the agreement.
I'm sorry, question again, what, sorry.
I'll rephrase it. So the question was, when the agreement was made with, the leasee regarding the hoist, was that decision by the harbor master at the time, which was you, made, was the decision for the location made partially because of what was going on with the freezers? Or did the freezers have any bearing on the decision to place the hoist where it currently is? Trying to find out the
In the
background.
discussions over different conversations, the movement of the freezers was to make room on the dock for more toters and bins, which would then help with having a hoist or hoists on the pier.
Okay. So, what I'm struck with is similar to kind of what happened with our last agenda item, which is, right now, we're in the middle of a strategic plan. We have a strategic plan on hold, and I think there are a lot of people, especially in the fishing community, that feel like the pier has some access issues. They've been pointed out by the public before. There are numerous public safety concerns related to the pier that haven't been addressed yet.
What agenda item are you on?
Excuse me?
What agenda item are you on?
I am on agenda item 11.
Oh, I thought that agenda item number 11 says possible location, change in location of 3 captains hoist at Pillar Point Harbor. And you're talking about the strategic plan?
That's right, I am talking about the strategic plan. So, if we are doing things to the pier, outside of the strategic planning process that add to congestion on the pier, and there hasn't been, public input, there hasn't been a public process, it hasn't gone through the strategic planning process, and there hasn't been a review of public safety. My concern is that, we haven't made it part of the strategic planning process. So when this agreement was made, I don't remember if the strategic plan hadn't come into the picture yet, is that?
I believe the strategic plan was less than a year since we started that. April.
Yeah, okay.
Less than a year.
And then the other question I had for you is, with regard to the permits, what happened with the permits? Why didn't the district receive copies of the permits, in advance of the work being started?
I don't think that, my recollection is that, that was never past practice with any of the tenants to ask for copies of the permits till they were completed. I think it states that in the memo, or one of the memos, that, was out there, was it something to the sort of, please provide copies of the permits when they're completed and signed off.
So the let me understand this correctly.
Past
The
practice.
past practice of the district was to allow work on district property and to validate permits, or to look to ask for permits after the work was completed?
Well, first off, in construction, typically, let's say something was going on the pier or somewhere in the area of the pier, or any site, typically, the county or the coastal commission may ask to have it posted. That would be by the permittee requester, not us, unless it's our project.
But I thought that the district required that permits be provided for
They did.
the work.
Yeah, the permits required for the work, but typically you wait for the permits for the sign off of the permit. If they took out the permit, then you wait for the copy of it for the inspectors to sign off, and everybody's got a number and everything else on it.
But wouldn't you want to see the permit before the work got started, the signed off
That
permit?
hadn't been the past practice. I think that in the future, we would probably be always asking for that if there was a permit required, but at past practice, that was not the case.
So would you say that was a lapse in the process, or how would you describe that?
I don't know how I describe it, except it was a past practice. You know, there hasn't been a lot of construction out there that wasn't done under some kind of a permit of some sort, but it was usually done by the district, not by the tenants. And if it was done by the tenants, if it was internal, we may not even know the work was done.
So when the electrical was being installed for the hoist, was it your expectation that there was already a permit for the electrical?
I believe there was a permit for the electrical, and then it expired. And then a new permit was taken out because they have a certain lifespan for a permit, counter permits as they call them. I'm sorry? Yeah, but, well, I mean, I think that, you know, a lot of the work that's been done on it there in the years past before my time, it would appear that they did not have permits as well.
So there's been a pattern of.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the, if you recall, the electrical project itself, sorry, my voice is going here. The electrical project that we had going on was to rip out all the stuff that's been stuck under the pier over the last 50 years, or whenever the pier was built. Basically, someone just, you know, stuck in there. And there was no permits, no electrical code requirement, activities, they just stuck it in. We had everything from home wiring underneath the pier to whatever, it was a hazard. That's why we're having it removed. And, you know, that's been an ongoing project for the last 2 years, just getting rid of all the stuff we keep finding that was put in over the last 2-3 decades.
But we got a permit to do that, right?
There's no requirement for a permit to take out wiring, it's for putting in wiring.
I see.
Yeah, in that case, it was totally just removal.
And
If
what
they had
about,
other permit, they had other electrical permits to do their new work.
okay, so when the hoist was installed, without the permits, that was around the same time as the electrical project was being done in the parking lot?
No, it was not.
Oh, it was a different time frame?
I think it was probably about 2012, end of the year, somewhere in there, that the electrical work was being done, because I remember the electrical was run from the building out to the face of the pier. There was a permit for the work, as a contractor was doing the work.
I meant the electrical work in the parking lot.
Oh, sorry.
That was about the same time, right?
No, that was 2000, well, this would be 2015 now, so it'll be about 2014, beginning of the year.
When the parking lot
Yeah,
electrical was
yeah.
installed. And was there a permit pulled in advance of that project?
No, the contractor was supposed to go get a counter permit, and they were going to go down to get counter permits from the county, which is a typical procedure with contractors. They go down to get a bunch of different permits for different work. It turns out that then, with all the discussions about that location, the county planning director decided that that was coastal commission territory. So basically, every piece of work now from that discussion that occurred requires a coastal development permit from the coastal commission for a large portion of the whole Pillar Point area, because it used to be underwater. So from that, basically, that's made any tenant we have or other people that may have businesses there, or except for us, would have to go through the full coastal development permit process just to get like an electrical or plumbing permit if it's outside.
So this was sort of a new discovery then?
New discovery and agreement, discussion, agreement, whatever you want to call it, between the county permitting planning director and the California Coastal Commission.
For land-based projects?
Anything that's land-based out to the end of the pier.
But my understanding is that it was always understood that the coastal commission had jurisdiction over Johnson
No,
Pier.
no.
Mm-mm.
No?
No.
Oh,
No, this
really?
all came out of all that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Before you just go down to the county, get a permit and do it.
for stuff on the pier?
Yeah, like if you're gonna put a new outlet in, or a new transformer, or a new plumbing line, you just go down to the county. But because of the discussions of all this, that involved putting the coastal commission in touch with the county, and then they decided that was underwater at one time, and now it's filled with backfill. So that was at one time under the coastal commission land, and they consider it still that way.
Well, I guess what I'm confused about is how was it that the county permitted work on the pier when it's very well understood that anything over water is within the coastal commission's jurisdiction.
No, we had, excuse me, when we had the fire out at the Fish Buyers Building,
Yeah.
that was a county permit to redo all that. And now we'd have to go to the Coastal Commission for that.
Really?
Yep,
Yeah, because of what's occurred during this project.
yeah.
Yeah, let's move on. Item 12, suspension of hiring freeze to fill 2 deputy harbor master positions. Memo from Ms. Harris.
I'm sorry. We're asking, we have, 2 positions that are gonna be coming up, opening in the next few months for deputy harbor masters. So we're requesting that, the hiring freeze be suspended in order for us to be able to fill these deputy harbor master positions. And we do have an open list currently, we do have a list available, and that's about 4 or 5 people on it. So we will be filling through interviews. We have a retirement, we have 2 retirements. We have 2 retirements.
Any questions, discussion?
Maybe 3.
I was wondering,
Sorry, give me a second. I'm sorry, let me just add something, because
Yeah.
Rocky has confused with us. So my assumption is that, what we have is we have an assistant harbor master that's retiring, and we have a deputy harbor master that's retiring. So, ultimately, what's probably gonna happen is employees will be moved up, and therefore, ultimately, the positions that are gonna be filled ultimately will be at the deputy harbor master position. So that's why I would be looking at that. It may not be that way, but that's the,
And these are position, oh, I'm sorry, you have a
yeah,
question.
go ahead, I'm sorry, Nicole, I just wanted to add that.
yeah, I was just wondering, because I think that was before my time when this hiring freeze was initiated, and if it still makes sense to have a hiring freeze in effect. And it seems to me, I've been attending the meetings for around 2 years, and it feels like every time there's a change in staff, there is an item on the agenda, and then there is an exception being made, and someone is being hired. So how much sense does it really make to keep that hiring freeze? I don't wanna change it right now, I just wanna understand it. Why was it, I've read in the 2006 LAFCO report in the general manager's rebuttal to that it, as a significant cost-saving effort. Is that when it was instated? Like,
I believe so, because I think it's been here since before I got here, the hiring freeze, so I'm gonna say 6 and 7, because I know they lifted it in 2007 to hire someone, so that sounds about right, with the hiring freeze, and I believe that was during the time that there were significant issues with funding, and so they decided to do a hiring freeze, so people couldn't be hired without going to the board, basically. So anytime there's a hire that has to be made. It would make more sense to, which is what we have now, is we have a specific number of positions. And so if we stick to that number of positions, and if any of them became vacant, then we would do an automatic hire and go from there. If we were looking to increase the number of positions, then we would come to the board, and that would probably make more sense. And that's what I've seen when I work for the state and when I work for other locations. If you have your allotted number of positions, which with us is about 28, I believe. So if we wanted to go above that, yes, we would have to come to the board, but if we kept, anytime we wanted to just fill those positions, we could just.
but since LAFCO is looking at the harbor district again, I'm wondering how much, cost-saving effort we should put into this and maybe see.
There's no way that the harbor can run without filling these positions.
Without filling
Can't
both.
happen,
If
no.
you-
We're losing 2 people at Oyster Point Marina. We might as well shut it down. I don't mean to, we can't move anybody from the other side. We need people for Killer Point.
Sure.
So we're gonna be losing 2 people.
And you're still operating 18 hours at
Yes.
Oyster Point Marina? Okay,
So we can.
those were all my questions.
Any
I
other?
was gonna make a motion that we suspend the hiring freeze in order to fulfill 2 deputy harbor master positions.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Terrabonne,
Aye.
President Brennan.
Aye. Item 14, we've got information report, amendments, district policies.
13.
Oh, 13, sorry. Requests for proposals, district council legal services.
Yes, it was asked at the last meeting to bring this back, with a few changes, and as I recall, the few changes were, marked in red. One was the knowledge of the California Coastal Act, and knowledge of SAFE Act, and the California Environmental Quality Act. That's shown in the document attached.
Are there any questions or discussion?
Yes, I would like to be enlightened as to why this is on the agenda.
It's on the agenda because the board voted at the last meeting to place it on the agenda.
And can you explain why the board wanted to put this on the agenda?
Are you asking Scott that?
I'm asking the board, because the board directed staff to do this.
I think it's obvious. You read the agenda item.
Yeah,
Hey, can you find out where it's obvious?
which item are
Is there any other questions or
13.
discussion?
It may just fall under transparency. I think that it's just like the HUD for the general manager and lead council, we're encouraging the current people, current participants to apply. They'll be considered as well. That we just want a transparent public process to show that we're putting this out to bid and that we have the best people in the position at the best rates.
So, okay, thanks for the explanation. So why is this process going through an RFP, and the process that was mentioned for general manager search was not done through an RFP? If we're looking for transparency on this, why,
Is that a question you're asking staff?
I'm asking the board, because the board is saying that because of transparency, they want to show the public the idea that everybody starting anew, and even the qualified incumbents that are in either the legal services or acting general managers. And the process for putting this out to bid took two pathways. The first one for general manager took a pathway of an amendment to an existing contract and completely neglected the requirement for a request for proposals. And this one is going through a pathway request for proposals. So what's the different, what's the rationale for two different approaches to it?
I just want to remind you, this isn't like a forum for back and forth discussion. If you've got something to say, say it.
It's not a form for back and forth. I'm questioning the process.
Why comes into the search for top management is frequently conducted through headhunting organizations or organizations with expertise in that matter. And the search for legal counsel rarely uses headhunter firms to go out and try and track down best counsel. That's the best way I could explain it.
Well, still, we're looking for request for proposals for headhunters, and that was not done. That's what it comes down to. Why are we, this is a different process. We're looking at a different, or how you maintain the same district council.
Is there any
Why was
other
the
additional questions
process
or
for
discussion? Because we've heard what you
looking
said.
into a general manager search did not vote?
Could you please stop? Could you
Why
please
did
stop?
not go through a request for proposal? I think the
You
board needs to
keep
ask that.
repeating yourself. We've heard
Oh,
what
if
you
you're answering
said.
the question,
Let
maybe I
me
can.
try to answer that. I think
Yeah.
for the reason to accept the proposal that was in front of us at the last meeting was also a time constraint, because we wanted to start that process as soon as possible and not waste any time for that, because, you know, it's really essential that we fill that position as quickly as possible. That was one of the reasons. question.
Yes.
Because it was my understanding when this was on the last agenda for district council legal services, that it would be, I don't know, either 2 RFPs or more general RFP, because now the administrative duties in the RFP only really apply to the general counsel and not the employment counsel.
We
So what's
went
that
through the
9%?
tapes, and at the time,
No one ever mentioned it.
no one ever mentioned anything about the employment council. Part of it only talked about the general counsel.
Okay, then it was
So
my,
the direction was given only for general.
You guys talked about that.
it was my misunderstanding.
So my comment, did you have something? Okay. My comment, just to kind of follow up on what Commissioner David just said, is that I think that just based on the proposals the district received last time we put out an RFP, we got back proposals from council that was also qualified to be employment counsel, and actually the counsel that we currently have as general counsel, that firm is completely qualified to be employment counsel as well. So I don't think that the RFP, I don't think that the proposals we get are necessarily just going to be limited to general counsel. I believe we probably will receive some proposals from firms that could provide either general counsel or employment counsel, and possibly provide general counsel that could then make recommendations on options for employment counsel if the board decided that we wanted to take a different approach to employment counsel. We might want to have general counsel make recommendations to the board for employment counsel on an as-needed basis, which is very common with special districts. Special districts don't necessarily have to have employment counsel on retainer, and often they don't. So there are a lot of different scenarios as far as how that could be handled, and that's all something that the board would need to think about. And I think looking at proposals and talking with firms is a good way to go about it. And I think probably we're not talking to staff right now. I'm making my comment, and
I really apologize that
it's, if you wanted to make a comment, you should have done it earlier.
you didn't ask. You didn't ask us if we could make a comment. I'm sorry.
Can I finish? Can I
You can
finish?
finish, please finish, but I'd like to add something.
So, I would like to finish, thank you, and I'd just like to move this along. So, I'd like to make a motion that, we direct the acting general manager to issue a request for proposals for district council legal services. Can I get a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo? Commissioner David? Commissioner Mathush?
Aye.
Commissioner Carvalho? President Bryan?
Aye. Item 14.
Commissioner,
Oh,
may I ask a question?
yeah.
Timing wise, with expedience or in the next couple, how soon do you need this back as far as the information, just so I can make sure I.
The proposals?
Yeah,
Well, I think you had a date in there,
okay.
and that was fine.
Okay.
So item 14 is a information report, amendments to district policies. Ms. Harris, memo, please.
You have my memo, I'll take any questions, because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to speak. May I speak?
I asked that you please give us your memo or your report.
So this is the informational report that, from time to time, the Harbor District amends its policies, and I just wanted to let the board know that there would be policies coming before it on, different items. Part of these items are included in the District Transparency Certificate of Excellence that we told the grand jury that we would try to get by, I believe it was the end of May. So just in the next few months, time permitting, between the move and the RFP for legal and whatever else we have going on, the LAFCO review. We're gonna try to amend some of these policies and hopefully we can, make the May 31st deadline to get the certificate. So I'll take any questions.
Any questions or comments?
Moving on to item 15.
I have a question. I just wanted to make sure you guys had a chance. So can you tell us about the May 31st deadline and what that's all about?
The grand jury had a report regarding web of transparency for special districts. I believe you remember it. In that report, we stated that we would try to get this transparency certificate from California Special Districts Association by May 31st.
Okay. And so do you think that we're going to be able to do that? I'm not clear on what's happening.
I'm hoping, but every day that I go to work, it's a new thing going on. There's something new that we have to do, so I'm hoping that we can get it done.
Okay.
Without having to work the 80 hours a week that Scott works.
Scott, do you have any comments on this deadline?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay. All right, and no questions or comments from you guys? All right. And there's nothing we need to vote on here, is there?
No, it's just the information.
Okay. So item 15, we've got update list of signatures for US Bank. And there's a memo, it says, list of signatures, finance director, Galarza.
So I'll be authorized execution of the master services agreement for US Bank with the additional of Nicole David, Tom Matoush, and Scott Grindy, and the deletion of James Tucker, William Hosinger, and Peter Grinnell to the signature card list. So this is for where our funds are located, so that, the signature card, so that everyone can sign checks. If necessary.
Didn't we do this at the last?
There's a couple
That
different
was a couple,
accounts.
the other one was for the San Mateo County Investment Pool,
Okay.
and this is for US Bank, where we have our, we do our banking, our
Okay.
checks and all that.
Are there any questions or?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David. Commissioner Mathush.
Aye.
Commissioner Terrabonne.
Aye.
President Brennan.
Aye. Item 16, information report, San Mateo County Investment Pool. I'd like to move this to the next meeting so that we can get through this meeting.
Sure. This was mainly just an informational request that came from the board.
Yeah, and I really appreciated it, and it looks like a lot of work went into putting it together, but I think we would have more time and maybe not be so tired if we look at it at a later date, if the rest of the board's okay with that.
So bring it back to the next agenda.
Yeah, that'd be great. So item 17, we've got information report, agenda preparation, and packet distribution report, Scott Rindy.
Yes, this is purely just so it's, as it says, it's an informational report, letting the board know when packets are due, when things are coming and going, as far as the office and the preparation pathways through the coming, it looks like about a year here. And then also, there's a calendar on the very back, our deputy secretary has done a great job on highlighting so that people know where the board holidays are, staff holidays are, agenda posting, staff memos due, it goes into a packet, so that we stay on time and schedule as much as possible for everything we do. It's basically a tool.
Any comments or questions? Well, I wanted to thank the staff for putting this together. I think this is really useful, and I plan to thumbtack it to my wall so I can refer back to it. So thank you for that. Next item, we've got 17, information report. Oh, I'm sorry, 18.
18.
Authorize sending of letter to San Mateo County Agency Formation Commission requesting delay municipal service review and sphere of influence update. And the report was me, and there is a letter attached in your board packet, which service review. And this letter was delivered as a draft to the LAFCO Commission today, and there was a good dialogue between the commission and members of the public, and Scott Ridgey was at the meeting, and I appreciate him being there today. So, are there any questions or discussion about the letter?
Did you say that this letter was delivered to LAFCO?
The letter was delivered as a draft,
To LAFCO?
that's right.
What, where did this come from? What right does this letter have in leaving the district to LAFCO, whether it's drafted or approved? That is highly illegal.
It's not illegal,
It
it's
is
in a
illegal.
board packet,
My
it's a
name
public
is-
document.
My name is on that letter, and I did not approve this letter
Stephen
at all.
Miller, will you please weigh in on the fact that this is a public document in our board packet?
This letter was not approved, it was not discussed at the commission level, and the idea that LAFCO got even a draft of this.
There's nothing stopping anyone at the county or
I
working
can
for
tell you, I am
LAFCO
very,
from
very
reading
disappointed
our
in the
board
fact that this
packet.
happened.
It says draft,
And
it's
any other
draft.
commissioner that has their name on it should be likewise disappointed.
Okay,
This is
so
absolutely
moving on,
incredible.
any other questions?
Well, on a comment, I believe a related issue that someone passed out, the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association, let the minutes reflect, is sending a similar letter to LAFCO, and this is based upon the bad report card, so to speak, that we got before. So I think that a number of organizations are working on our behalf to make a positive impression of the new board, trying to work together, the new management, and the things that we're all bringing positive energy to the operation of our two harbors and the state.
Is it Marcy?
Martha?
From the LAFCO was here, and she apologized that she couldn't stay on any longer.
That was nice for, that was
So
nice
she
for
did
the
come
county.
and said that she would touch base with us to kind of allay our concerns about the process.
The process, great.
Yeah.
And she's a good person to work with, so I think you're gonna find that she's very helpful and matter of fact, and is gonna, you know, a lot of what we talked about today was, concerns about the demands on staff that the process, was going to require, and she was, you know, trying to allay some fears about that, and, did say that they'd be getting as much information off the website as they possibly could, so that would cut down on the request.
Yeah.
And there were other comments that were made via letters to the LAFCO Commission. In addition to the one that Commissioner Mateusz just mentioned, there were a number of letters that came in from members of the public asking for a delay as well. Unfortunately, the delay is not going to happen because the board voted today to move forward with the process. But I think that they did appreciate hearing some of the feedback from the public, and they were aware of the draft letter. They were also aware of the agenda tonight, and they're aware of some of the things that, you know, some of the transitions that the district's going through, so they understand there's a lot on the staff's plate right now. I do think it's important to move ahead with sending the letter and follow through if the board so decides. And I think that it would make sense to have a cover letter that's maybe just one sentence from the general manager saying that the letter was drafted in advance of the LAFCO decision today. Does that make sense to you, Scott?
I believe so.
Okay, and I could help you write the one sentence if you need some input on that.
If I have a comment just to make.
Yeah.
I did talk with Martha today prior to the meeting, just to introduce myself as well, and she said that they would be sending out for staff, some of their staff at some point soon, just to meet with staff at the district so that we get an idea of what the list will look like or what they will be requesting, so we can kind of start tooling up for it.
And that's good to hear. I'm glad they're gonna do that. I did also wanna mention that, in the letter, I included mention of some of the reports, although at this point they're draft, that have already been produced in draft form, through the strategic planning process, which include the financial conditions assessment, the existing infrastructure and facilities assessment, and the fishing and community sustainability plan, which the district is planning on completing soon. And I think that these reports are going to be useful for the consultant that the county's working with.
I think, just to comment though, one thing that I'm concerned with is that they have draft documents, and there was a lot of errors in the one that had the financials. And we're finding those, and staff are reviewing that presently, and, you know, because it's a draft that was submitted, they produced, just like any building design, they say, here,
Right.
we drafted up the building, what do you like different, or what's right, what's wrong for what you want? And in this case, staff are looking through on the financial side, trying to make sure we get any corrections noted, because we are concerned with that.
I think that makes sense, and as, you know, we have more time to look through the drafts. One of the things that the district is going to need to do is to make suggested corrections to the drafts, and so perhaps what makes sense is to provide LAFCO with the version of the drafts that has redlined or italicized or whatever the suggested corrections that the district's gonna be giving back to the consultants eventually anyway. So they would see those notes, in the versions that they look at. So I think that would make the most sense, but they are public documents, so.
Well, I mean, the thing that the finance director was concerned about is that some of the assumptions are absolutely incorrect from a financial viewpoint, and so she's very uncomfortable with the numbers in that report. And I think that she would feel better if they had the financials, which are actually done by an auditor, which have a little bit more weight, and then review the budget and then talk to staff, because the assumptions that are in the financial assessment report from the strategic planning are completely wrong
Well, then,
assumptions.
we are gonna need to, you know, the board's gonna need to get all those corrections. So we're gonna need that italicized red line, whatever, corrected version back from the staff to review, so we can see what changes need to be made. And, you know, those drafts are already public, so in their current form.
Well, they shouldn't have been made public in their current form. Unfortunately, they were, but we weren't given a chance to say, no, they're wrong and they shouldn't be out there, because they are wrong. And it's wrong to have them out there with wrong numbers and wrong assumptions.
Sounds like misrepresentation.
Absolutely.
Well, the draft is out there already, so I'm just
I'm
pointing
just
that
letting you
out.
know that it does create a problem, because now it looks like we're trying to change numbers, and we're not trying to change numbers. They're just wrong assumptions that were made based on someone not knowing what they were doing.
There's nothing wrong with making corrections. I mean, that's part of,
I
that's part of
didn't
the
say there
process.
was anything wrong with making corrections. What I said was that the corrections are gonna be so drastic, because the numbers that are in the report are absolutely false and wrong, that it's gonna look like we said, oh, those numbers are wrong, here's some new ones, and that's not what's happening. What's happening is the assumptions that they're making are absolutely incorrect, and whoever did it didn't know what they were doing, in our finance director's opinion. And so therefore, there's a draft out there with wrong assumptions.
Well, it sounds like that's gonna become a very interesting discussion that we'll have to do.
Well, I think
with.
it's also just making sure they understand, so that we're not, looking like it's smoke and mirrors or something,
Right,
from one graph to the next.
And that's what she was concerned about,
Yeah.
and that's, you know,
This is one that was prepared by Lisa Wise.
Yeah.
yes. And we had, and the finance director did give them correct numbers at one point, but somehow they didn't end up in the draft. So that's why she's very concerned.
Are we following up with Lisa Wise to
Yes.
get that corrected?
Well, yeah, we have to, but, you know, that takes time, that document takes, you know, 50 pages or more. So she has to go through it line by line and mark it, and she's working on that, but that's in the middle of, you know, close, we have end of year close, she's had to get the, you know, W-2s out, she has 1099 she just had to do, staff has been on vacation, so it's a lot. So just to let you know that, you know, she's working on it, but that's where we are with that financial assessment report, so it's not the best body of work to kind of, the way it is now, to show, rely on.
Well, I'd hoped that we would have more time, but, you know, unfortunately, LAFCO's moving ahead.
Yeah.
And, it's, you know, they're not gonna start requesting documents in the next week or so, but it's coming, so, anyway,
Yeah.
is there a motion?
I move to authorize sending of letter to San Mateo County Local Agency Information Commission requesting delay municipal service review and sphere of influence update with additional cover letter explaining that this is the final letter and why the draft was sent, and
No, I think we just want to, sorry, say no, but I think what needs to be communicated is that the letter is being sent after the meeting where the letter was discussed, after the meeting where the decision was made. So just to be clear, the letter's coming in the day after. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense. You really gave it to LAFCO without any authorization. So why, and the decision was made this afternoon at the LAFCO meeting, not to, or for them to continue the process.
We're
So
working on a motion right now.
why are you even discussing
Working on
it?
a motion right now.
Well, I'm
Do you want to,
debating the motion.
can I get a
Motion is
second
already
for the
done.
motion?
It's already been done. The process is already, that decision is according to LAFCO.
I don't think that restate the motion because her motion is being corrected.
You want to restate the motion?
why don't you make the amendment or just recreate it then?
The cover letter part. So there would be a cover letter, like a one-sentence cover letter that basically just says, or maybe you could, including your motion, that there be a cover letter included, a short cover letter included, and leave it at that.
Who's making the motion? Only one commissioner can make a motion.
Well, I started it and then it was amended.
So we just amended it.
Without a second?
She needs to
I'm not
be able,
clear on
yeah,
what's
she
going
needs
on
to be
here.
clear on what the
Because
motion
it's
is.
kind of like a dialogue. So what's the motion?
Okay, let me start over again. I move to authorize sending of letter to LAFCO requesting delay and MSR and sphere of influence update with additional cover letter.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathush,
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano,
No.
President Brown.
Aye. So we've got item 19, which is the general manager's report.
And since we got 1 minute left, you have my report, I'll take any questions.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. Moving on, we've got item 20, finance director's report. Any questions?
I have a question for
Yeah.
So at the December, third meeting, I think it was approved, the amount approved for spending for the time period December 4th to January 20th, 2015 was, 650,000. And I think it was stated that it was expected to be 450,000, which is $200,000 safety buffer to accommodate for any emergencies. But it looks like when I look at the checks issued between December 4th and January 15th, now that the total amount spent was 128. So I was just wondering if there's a chance that we can highlight why this basically took 88% of that safety buffer.
Because I would venture to guess because we didn't get a treasurer at the last meeting, we ended up with more stuff on this listing, where normally that one would have been cut off at the last meeting, and this would have been a new one.
No, the meeting was, the January 7th meeting would have not even happened, that's why I
It
extended.
was a
it
special
to-
meeting.
And at the December 3rd
Well,
meeting, I think it was planned until January 21st or 20th.
Okay, it's 10:30.
So So does the board want to extend the meeting, or do we want to move stuff on to the next agenda? I think we need to complete,
Can we complete this item with,
yeah, we definitely
What's the
need to
policy, what's the
complete this
policy the
item.
board just approved for extending the meeting?
The board can extend the meeting or debate on any one item or the whole meeting, but it requires a vote of the board.
So I move that we extend the meeting to complete this item. Can I get a second?
second?
Wasn't there
Roll
ten
call.
thirty got that?
Yes, but there's now a motion to modify that rule.
We just already started discussing, we'll take less time to finish it now than bring it back to the next meeting, I think.
I guess the answer to the question is,
I'm sorry, there is a motion, we should let the board vote on the motion.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo, Commissioner David, Commissioner Latouche,
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano, President Brennan.
Aye. Okay, you want to pass?
I would say that the $650,000 is an estimate. It's just that, and she's not gonna know when she makes that estimate, and I would say she probably always makes it higher rather than lower. But I mean, we'd have to look to see what dates everything came in. But I would venture to guess it was an estimate, and you don't know what bills are coming in during what time of the year. Sometimes we get a discount if we pay it prior, and she says, you know, she goes ahead and pays it. We also had, we had to pay out of the general manager's, PTO that we had to deal with. It looks like we had collections, let's see what this, PG&E utilities. Oh, a cost share for, the U.S. Corps of Army Engineers of $89,000, which I'm sure she didn't account for. So there's just some items on here I'm sure that she didn't include in her amount. I'd have to look through it and see.
Do you have any more
Both
questions?
December and January count cards.
Okay.
Do you have any more questions?
No.
Okay, I have a question, unless someone else has one. So I noticed that there's $5,647.72 for Moffett Nichols, and that's for the facilities condition study. Is that for the whole study, or is that for part of it,
It's for one of the final payments.
a final payment?
I can't guarantee it's the final payment, but I think it was one of the final payments.
And I just had a process question for billing for the strategic plan. Since we commissioned the work with Moffett Nichols for the facilities condition study in advance of the strategic plan, or separately, and my understanding was they were billing us directly, and here clearly they are, we weren't being double billed for that, were we? So it was being incorporated into the,
They probably charged, Moffett Nickel probably only provided it to them, just like they would have provided it to us. And then, Lisa Weiss probably had to do things with it as far as what they're working on, so it's the charges they made it double billed from Moffett.
not,
So
that we,
you wouldn't be double billed.
I just wanted
No,
to
I know
double check,
what you're saying,
because it was
yeah.
packaged with their branding all over it.
Right, it's just that they were the submitter.
Okay. There is a long, really long list here.
What was, when was our last meeting, December
Yeah.
3rd?
Yeah.
So a month and a half of bills, that's 2 CalPERS, that's pretty much 2 or 3 of these.
Okay, and so did the commissioner look at these bills
We don't have a treasurer.
so that no one's seen them? Okay, can I get a motion?
It's just a report.
Oh, just a report, we don't have to approve this.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, you approved it, so you know, when you approved the 650, you approved all of it.
okay, great. So the next meeting will be held on February 4th at 6:30 at Seacrest School in Half Moon Bay. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.